Well, hello everybody. I'm Sam and you are listening to Chilliteracy, where it feels like it's been a minute since I've done that intro. And also, I don't know, I nearly took it in another direction. Hey everyone, how are we doing? Hello, good evening. Let me just adjust my mic a little bit. No, there is no acceptable microphone position. Hi. Also, I am unmuted, so that's a good start. Love to see it. And some subscriptions. Corolla, thank you very much. We're back to the Bumbling Bumblers, indeed. I feel like you could make a potentially fun tongue twister out of that, but I'm not going to try and come up with it on the fly on stream. Arian, thank you for the 46 months. Good evening. And where's no? And damn it, I was clicked on the wrong thing. Where? Twitch, put my sub message up. I just. Why did you not? I shouldn't send my sub. Hang on. Don't deny me like this. I get one of these a month. Music killed it. Wait, what? Oh, brain is fully fried. Right. Hang on. This is just. Wait. 1 second. No, No. No. Twitch isn't. It's not sending my sub message. Why? Firefox. See. Oh. Lady Mephistopheles, thank you. Okay, this isn't a bit. This isn't a, hey, it's weird. Subscription messages aren't firing. Can everybody test? As a great ploy to get everyone watching to subscribe to the channel. No, that's fine. It ate yours first time. It's eaten mine twice now. It's going to be full. I refuse to keep doing it. YouTube did this to me the other day as well. I was trying to post a post on the Longest John's YouTube account, which is, like a fifth of my job, and it was just going, nah, refresh it. I have already refreshed the page, and it just did it again. Yeah, this is I see. No, here's my mistake is I should switch to Firefox. I am on Firefox. This is, sorry, I get immensely frustrated with the whole browser recommendations because we just go round every 2 months, change to the next one, and so no one is saying, purposes of people who can't see chat, no one is recommending I change browser, but I know that's always a thing of like, I can't get this thing to work. Have you tried using a different browser? I'm going to log off and walk into the woods. You're unable to post messages at all on Twitch some time ago, but only for some channels. That's cool and groovy. You see that they're not coming through in chat. Yeah, trying a different browser does fix stupid problems. It's true. But I don't want to do that. Plus, whichever browser you were using is the wrong one. Why are you using that? You should switch to another one. I remember an era when people were genuinely, earnestly recommending Microsoft Edge. The successor to Internet Explorer, the butt of every joke. People were saying, no, you shouldn't be using Chrome, you should be using Edge. Edge is good now, you should do that. The immature-minded in chat, shut up, I know. But you should use Microsoft Edge, the browser. Like, no, I'm really okay. I'll swap over to that. Why are you using that? You should use Chrome. Okay, fine. I'll swap to Chrome. Chrome? What are you on? You should be using Opera. Okay, fine. I'll install Opera. You should be using Safari. That's Mac. I don't have a Mac. You should get a Mac. I'm gonna start swinging punches. Okay, fine. Get on Firefox. I'm livid. Why are you on Firefox, my dude? You should be on Microsoft Edge. Like, yeah. Anyway, hello everybody. This is, if anything, the farcical browser situation in which we all find ourselves is somewhat, you could say, perhaps imitative of the farcical situations we're about to explore this evening. Not just yet, but in a minute, from Men On the Bummel by Jerome K. Firefox is good when it came out, then Chrome is briefly better. Now Firefox is best again, but that's just you. Ah. or who's behind it for you. I mean, they're all corporations. They're all evil. Oh, yeah, no. Okay, for some reason, like genuinely for some reason, I don't understand. I am like riding high on anxiety today. I don't know why. It's that constant. It's like I've had 8 to 10 coffees, and there is just a constant feeling of like some task that I haven't done yet and have forgotten about is about to jump out and physically assault me. That's pretty much where my brain feels like it's at today, and has done for the last couple of days. As I say, I don't know why. I have stuff coming up, but it's not usually. I'm not usually within that window of panic yet. So, random anxiety is a daily thing for you. That sucks. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. And like this isn't a like everybody sympathise. Just you know, sharing really. But the good news. Hey, look, I can. Hang on a second. Let me demonstrate something for you. You all didn't hear any of that, did you? Do you want to know why? Because I finally have a different chair. I would say new chair, but this chair is not old. Is not new. Sorry, it's not old particularly either. But it's new here, but it's not new in its lifetime. And so that means because my old one did not possess. My spine is safe, kinda, yeah. My old one did not possess much income or the capacity to like rock back silently, which I can now do. So in fact, even if someone's like shouting and I want to get real like technical with it with the mic control, and I don't want to like make a big creaky plywood breaking under my spine sound as I rock back, I can just do that. I can just flop back like this and talk to you from over here and get a little bit more room noise into it, and then I can come up closer. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? The technical skill on display here is truly astounding. Feel free to take a spot on the blanket fort. Thank you. Yeah, I'll do what I do. And, you know, saying to all of you, anyone else out there that needs it, there's a space here for you. But yeah, I've got a new, to me, chair that's not as noisy, so I can like move around and rock back and stuff, and it doesn't creak really loudly. There's the eternal fear that I will just overbalance and pitch over backwards, but hey, wouldn't that be funny? Yeah, I feel like I had other stuff. It's still warm. I've got my windows open. There might be some outside noise creeping in. Apologies for that. If I do just say it for a bit, yeah, you'll just hear like a thump and probably a swear. Does Joey like the new chair? He's in his box at the moment. He kind of does the same as he did with the other one, of like just falls asleep, snuggled up as closely as he can to the wheels. Because I can't explain it other than it's metal and so maybe it's cold. But it is prime getting squished neath wheels position, so I have to be ultra careful before I move the chair because he's wise beyond his years. But yeah, he's sort of indifferent to it. I haven't been really letting him jump on my lap while I've been sat on this chair because reasons that I'm not going to go into extensive detail about because they're gross. But yeah, he's kicking along okay. Yeah, he's asleep in his box at the moment, and will probably at some point ask to come on my lap, and I will not let him. Yeah, I don't know. Do I have anything else? Anything else to address? Yeah, a little bit, Queek. A little bit. Imhotep's taking the curling up right under your feet when you're sitting with your feet up playing video games. Oh yeah, Joey will also... He's done that a few times as well. You just put you put your feet down on the ground, and suddenly there was a cat who's been there, could have been anywhere, but went there the whole time, which is cool. Yeah, I don't know. We have book week coming up. Not yet, but in like a couple of weeks. We did a tiny early little bit of planning for it. Need to do plenty more. But yeah, looking forward to that. That's our annual event. When do we have the book week coming up? The dates in the calendar that I have are the 8th of August to... Right? Yeah, 8th to the 14th. Because, like, initially, Lucy had set out Thursday the 7th to Thursday the 14th as a week. And then I pointed out, well, that's 8 days. Because of that weird mathematical quirk that I hate, where you, like, what is 7 plus 7? 14. Great. So if we start on the 7th and we do a thing every day and we finish on the 14th, that means we've done 7. No, it doesn't. It means we've done 8. Really? Yeah. So if you actually want to do a week's worth of streams and you want to do, like, you know, a week is 7, you need, this is like basic grade maths, and yet it still absolutely destroys my cognitive reasoning. I have not been able to grasp this fact. It's not even time, it's just numbers. Does that fit with the secret thing? Oh yeah, you're planning a thing, aren't you? Yeah. Yeah, so like that's, but yeah, we are planning to go from Friday the 8th to Thursday the 14th. And yeah, we will have more to say about that when we have more to say. I think that's about it. I can hear foxes squeaking away in the garden, which is, you know, that's going to be some fun entertainment. It's already almost August and you do not believe it. I hate that fact. I in a conversation last night, I was saying, like, truly, honestly, earnestly, actually, for real, it feels like at some point in the next couple of weeks, we're all going to get a letter through the post that's like, from some sort of governmental chronological agency to go like, oh yeah, we're really, really sorry. Turns out we've been overcharging you on time, and basically here is like a 3-month rebate. It should just be like mid-May. Really sorry, we've been overcharging. Have 3 months on us. We'll get this fixed. Like, it can't, legally it can't actually be August yet. I know it's the 26th, it's not actually August yet, but it effectively is. We're all just looking at it like, yeah, I guess it's August. Well, that's the year over now, just the long dark decline into December. So, like, yeah, there's just, like, time interest has been just a little bit too much. Can't do summer again. They can fix it in autumn. I'm sorry, we have to disagree. Wait, that's the thing. You get it back, but it, like, we just get like a, okay, for the goths you can get a 3-month October. How's that? But like early October when it's still a little bit warm, so you can go outside in like a jumper, but not. You don't need big coats. Should be June because you left home in June and you can't have missed a full month by not being home. And struggling with heat too. Yeah, it's been mega warm and humid, but no storms. Again, like, if it's going to do this, I mean, I like warm more than I like cold, and so like if it's going to, I don't mind it as much as others. I'll complain about it because I'm a Brit, but I don't mind it as much as others. But like, if it's going to stay this warm, could we at least get a storm to sort of balance it out a bit? That would be nice. Not Goth, Arizona. Fair. The two genders, Goth or Arizona. Anyway, with that, let's have a story. Let's read this. Well, I've sat and rambled for long enough now that we'll probably still come in on the usual time. I was going to say this might be a shorter stream. I just have one chapter before the break and one after, but you know. Oh yeah, also accent warning. Yeah, we have some accents, which if I try and recap where the last bit left off, our three buffoons, there's no other way to put it really, they planned to, you know, their plan is to take a cycling trip across Germany. I was going to say Europe, but I think specifically Germany. And as a weird little, like, offshoot intent of this, they have like a tourist guidebook for German tourists, intended to be used by German tourists, instructing them in conversational English for various scenarios. And their plan was to, or is, as we will find, to try this out, pretending essentially to be German tourists, going into shops and seeing how far what is written in these books gets them. They are sort of functioning a little bit like modern day TikTok content creators. So that's really where that was left off. But other than that, yeah, their plan, as they put it together, is to take a cycling tour across Germany. They haven't got there yet, but that's, you know, that's the goal. Feeling very Halloween right now as you cuddle your black cat. Hell yeah. So yeah, if we're ready, your link is at the top of chat. It doesn't link you to the chapter because it's not a page that does that. But we are going from chapter 4. If we are ready, I shall begin with 3 Men on the Bummel by Jerome K. Jerome. Chapter 4. Why Harris considers alarm clocks unnecessary in a family. Social instincts of the young. A child's thoughts about the morning. The sleepless watchman. The mystery of him. His over-anxiety. Night thoughts. The sort of work one does before breakfast. The good sheep and the bad. Disadvantages of being virtuous. Harris's new stove begins badly. The daily outgoing of my Uncle Podger. The elderly city man considered as a racer. We arrive in London. We talk the language of the traveller. George came down on Tuesday evening and slept at Harris's place. We thought this a better arrangement than his own suggestion, which was that we should call for him on our way and pick him up. Picking George up in the morning means picking him out of bed to begin with and shaking him awake, in itself an exhausting effort with which to commence the day. Helping him find his things and finish his packing, and then waiting for him while he eats his breakfast, a tedious entertainment from the spectator's point of view, full of wearisome repetition. I knew that if he slept at Beggar Bush he would be up in time. I have slept there myself, and I know what happens. About the middle of the night, as you judge, though in reality it may be somewhat later, you are startled out of your first sleep by what sounds like a rush of cavalry along the passage, just outside your door. Your half-awakened intelligence fluctuates between burglars, the day of judgment, and a gas explosion. You sit up in bed and listen intently. You are not kept waiting long. The next moment, a door is violently slammed, and somebody or something is evidently coming downstairs on a tea tray. "I told you so," says a voice outside, and immediately some hard substance, a head, one would say from the ring of it, rebounds against the panel of your door. By this time you are charging madly round the room for your clothes. Nothing is where you put it overnight. The articles most essential have disappeared entirely. And meanwhile the murder, or revolution, or whatever it is, continues unchecked. You pause for a moment, with your head under the wardrobe, where you think you can see your slippers, to listen to a steady, monotonous thumping upon a distant door. The victim, you presume, has taken refuge there. They mean to have him out and finish him. Will you be in time? The knocking ceases, and a voice, sweetly reassuring in its gentle plaintiveness, asks meekly, "Pa, may I get up?" You do not hear the other voice, but the responses are, "No, it was only the bath. No, she ain't really hurt. Only wet, you know. Yes, Ma, I'll tell him what you say. No, it was a pure accident. Yes. Good night, Papa." Then the same voice, exerting itself so as to be heard in a distant part of the house, remarks, "You've got to come upstairs again. Pa says it isn't time yet to get up." You return to bed, and be listening to somebody being dragged upstairs, evidently against their will. By a thoughtful arrangement, the spare rooms at Beggarbush are exactly underneath the nurseries. The same somebody, you conclude, still offering the most creditable opposition, is being put back into bed. You can follow the contest with much exactitude, because every time the body is flung down upon the spring mattress, the bedstead, just above your head, makes a sort of jump, while every time the body succeeds in struggling out again, you are aware by the thud upon the floor. After a time, the struggle wanes, or maybe the bed collapses, and you drift back into sleep. But the next moment, or what seems to be the next moment, you again open your eyes under the consciousness of a presence. The door is being held ajar, and 4 solemn faces, piled one on top of the other, are peering at you as though you were some natural curiosity kept in this particular room. Seeing you awake, the top face, walking calmly over the other 3, comes in and sits on the bed in a friendly attitude. "Oh," it says, "we didn't know you were awake. I've been awake some time." "So I gather," you reply shortly. "Pa doesn't like us to get up too early," it continues. "He says everybody in the house is liable to be disturbed if we get up, so, of course, we mustn't." The tone is that of gentle resignation. It is instinct with the spirit of virtuous pride, arising from the consciousness of self-sacrifice. "Don't you call this being up?" you suggest. "Oh, no, we're not really up, you know, because we're not properly dressed." The fact is self-evident. "Pa's always very tired in the morning," the voice continues. "Of course, that's because he works hard all day. Are you ever tired in the morning?" At this point, he turns and notices, for the first time, that the 3 other children have also entered and are sitting in a semicircle on the floor. From their attitude, it is clear they have mistaken the whole thing for one of these slower forms of entertainment, some comic lecture or conjuring exhibition, and are waiting patiently for you to get out of bed and do something. It shocks him, the idea of their being in the guest's bedchamber. He peremptorily orders them out. They do not answer him. They do not argue. In dead silence, and with one accord, they fall upon him. All you can see from the bed is a confused tangle of waving arms and legs, suggestive of an intoxicated octopus trying to find bottom. Not a word is spoken. That seems to be the etiquette of the thing. If you are sleeping in your pyjamas, you spring from the bed, and only add to the confusion. If you are wearing a less showy garment, you stop where you are and shout commands which are utterly unheeded. The simplest plan is to leave it to the eldest boy. He does get them out after a while and closes the door upon them. It reopens immediately, and one, generally Muriel, is shot back into the room. She enters as from a catapult, She is handicapped by having long hair, which can be used as a convenient handle. Evidently aware of this natural disadvantage, she clutches it herself tightly in one hand and punches with the other. He opens the door again and cleverly uses her as a battering ram against the wall of those without. You can hear the dull crash as her head enters among them and scatters them. When the victory is complete, he comes back and resumes his seat on the bed. There is no bitterness about him. He has forgotten the whole incident. "I like the mornings," he says. "Don't you?" "Some mornings," you agree, "are all right. Others are not so peaceful." He takes no notice of your expression. A faraway look steals over his somewhat ethereal face. "I should like to die in the morning," he says. "Everything is so beautiful then." "Well," you answer, "perhaps you will, if your father ever invites an irritable man to come and sleep here, and doesn't warn him beforehand." He descends from his contemplative mood and becomes himself again. "It's jolly in the garden," he suggests. "You wouldn't like to get up and have a game of cricket, would you?" It was not the idea with which you went to bed, but now, as things have turned out, it seems as good a plan as lying there hopelessly awake. And you agree. You learn, later in the day, that the explanation of the proceeding is that you, unable to sleep, woke up early in the morning and thought you would like a game of cricket. The children, taught to be ever courteous to guests, felt it their duty to humour you. Mrs. Harris remarks at breakfast that at least you might have seen to it that the children were properly dressed before you took them out, while Harris points out to you, pathetically, how by your one morning's example and encouragement you have undone his labour of months. On this Wednesday morning, George, it seems, clamoured to get up at 5:15 and persuaded them to let him teach them cycling tricks around the cucumber frames on Harris's new wheel. Even Mrs. Harris, however, did not blame George on this occasion. She felt intuitively the idea would not have been entirely his. It is not that the Harris children have the faintest notion of avoiding blame at the expense of a friend and comrade. One and all they are honesty itself in accepting responsibility for their own misdeeds. It simply is. That is how the thing presents itself to their understanding. When you explain to them that you had no original intention of getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to play cricket on the croquet lawn, or to mimic the history of the early church by shooting with a crossbow at dolls tied to a tree, that, as a matter of fact, left to your own initiative, you would have slept peacefully till roused in Christian fashion with a cup of tea at 8, they are firstly astonished, secondly apologetic, and thirdly sincerely contrite. In the present instance, waiving the purely academic question whether the awakening of George at a little before 5 was due to natural instinct on his part, or to the accidental passing of a homemade boomerang through his bedroom window, the dear children frankly admitted that the blame for his uprising was their own. As the eldest boy said, "We ought to have remembered that Uncle George had a long day before him, and we ought to have dissuaded him from getting up. I blame myself entirely." But an occasional change of habit does nobody any harm, and besides, as Harris and I agreed, it was good training for George. In the Black Forest, we should be up at 5 every morning. That we had determined on. Indeed, George himself had suggested 4:30, but Harris and I had argued that 5 would be early enough as an average. That would enable us to be on our machines by 6, and to break the back of our journey before the heat of the day set in. Occasionally we might start a little earlier, but not as a habit. I myself was up that morning at 5. This was earlier than I had intended. I had said to myself on going to sleep, 6 o'clock, sharp. There are men, I know, who can wake themselves at any time of the minute. They say to themselves, literally, as they lay their heads upon the pillow, 4:30, 4:35, or 5:15, as the case may be. and as the clock strikes they open their eyes. It is very wonderful, this. The more one dwells upon it, the greater the mystery grows. Some ego within us, acting quite independently of our conscious self, unaided by clock or sun or any other medium known to our five senses, it keeps watch through the darkness. At the exact moment it whispers, "Time!" and we awake. The work of an old riverside fellow I once talked with called him to be out of bed each morning half an hour before high tide. He told me that never once had he overslept himself by a minute. Latterly, he never even troubled to work out the tide for himself. He would lie down tired and sleep a dreamless sleep, and each morning at a different hour this ghostly watchman, true as the tide itself, would silently call him. Did the man's spirit haunt through the darkness the muddy river stairs, or had it knowledge of the ways of nature? Whatever the process, the man himself was unconscious of it. In my own case, my inward watchman is, perhaps, somewhat out of practice. He does his best, but he is over-anxious. He worries himself and loses count. I say to him, maybe, 5:30, please, and he wakes me up with a start at 2:30. I look at my watch. He suggests that perhaps I forgot to wind it up. I put it to my ear. It is still going. He thinks maybe something has happened to it. He is confident himself that it is 5:30, if not a little later. To satisfy him, I put on a pair of slippers and go downstairs to inspect the dining room clock. What happens to a man when he wanders about the house in the middle of the night, clad in a dressing gown and a pair of slippers, there is no need to recount. Most men know by experience. Everything, especially everything with a sharp corner, takes a cowardly delight in hitting him. When you are wearing a pair of stout boots, things get out of your way. When you venture among furniture and woolwork slippers with no socks, it comes at you and kicks you. I return to bed, bad-tempered, and, refusing to listen to his further absurd suggestion that all the clocks in the house have entered into a conspiracy against me, take half an hour to get to sleep again. From 4 to 5 he wakes me every 10 minutes. I wish I had never said a word to him about the thing. At 5 o'clock he goes to sleep himself, worn out, and leaves it to the girl, who does it half an hour later than usual. On this particular Wednesday he worried me to such an extent that I got up at 5 simply to be rid of him. I did not know what to do with myself. Our train did not leave till 8. All our luggage had been packed and sent on the night before, together with the bicycles to Fenchurch Street Station. I went into my study. I thought I would put in an hour's writing. The early morning, before one has breakfasted, is not, I take it, a good season for literary effort. I wrote 3 paragraphs of a story and then read them over to myself. Some unkind things have been said about my work, but nothing has yet been written which would have done justice to those 3 paragraphs. I threw them into the waste paper basket and sat trying to remember what, if any, charitable institutions provided pensions for decayed authors. To escape from this train of reflection, I put a golf ball in my pocket and, selecting a driver, strolled out into the paddock. A couple of sheep were browsing there, and they followed and took a keen interest in my practice. The one was a kindly, sympathetic old party. I do not think she understood the game. I think it was my doing this innocent thing so early in the morning that appealed to her. At every stroke I made, she bleated, "Good! Good indeed!" She seemed as pleased as if she had done it herself. As for the other one, she was a cantankerous, disagreeable old thing, as discouraging to me as her friend was helpful. "Bad! Damn bad!" was her comment on almost every stroke. As a matter of fact, some were really excellent strokes, but she did it just to be contradictory and for the sake of irritating. I could see that. By a most regrettable accident, one of my swiftest balls struck the good sheep on the nose, and at that the bad sheep laughed distinctly and undoubtedly, a husky, vulgar laugh. And while her friend stood glued to the ground, too astonished to move, she changed her note for the first time and bleated, "Good, very good, best shot he's made." I would have given half a crown if it had been she I had hit instead of the other one. It is ever the good and amiable who suffer in this world. I had wasted more time than I had intended in the paddock, and when Ethelbertha came to tell me that it was 7:30, and the breakfast was on the table, I remembered that I had not shaved. It vexes Ethelbertha, my shaving quickly. She fears that to outsiders it may suggest a poor-spirited attempt at suicide, and that, in consequence, it may get about the neighbourhood that we are not happy together. As a further argument, she has also hinted that my appearance is not of the kind that can be trifled with. On the whole, I was just as glad not to be able to take a long farewell of Ethelbertha. I did not want to risk her breaking down, but I should have liked more opportunity to say a few farewell words of advice to the children, especially as regards my fishing rod, which they will persist in using for cricket stumps, and I hate having to run for a train. 1/4 mile from the station I overtook George and Harris. They were also running. In their case, so Harris informed me jerkily while we trotted side by side, it was the new kitchen stove that was to blame. This was the first morning they had tried it, and from some cause or other it had blown up the kidneys and scalded the cook. He said he hoped that by the time we returned they would have got more used to it. We caught the train by the skin of our teeth, as the saying is, and reflecting upon the events of the morning as we sat gasping in the carriage, there passed vividly before my mind the panorama of my Uncle Podger, as on 250 days in the year he would start from Ealing Common by the 9:13 train to Moorgate Street. From my Uncle Podger's house to the railway station was 8 minutes' walk. What my uncle always said was, "Allow yourself 1/4 hour and take it easily." What he always did was to start 5 minutes before the time and run. I do not know why, but this was the custom of the suburb. Many stout city gentlemen lived at Ealing in those days. I believe some live there still, and caught early trains to town. They all started late. They all carried a black bag and a newspaper in one hand and an umbrella in the other, and for the last 1/4 mile to the station, wet or fine, they all ran. Folks with nothing else to do, nursemaids chiefly and errand boys, with now and then a perambulating costermonger added, would gather on the common of a fine morning to watch them pass and cheer the most deserving. It was not a showy spectacle. They did not run well, they did not even run fast, but they were earnest, and they did their best. The exhibition appealed less to one's sense of art than to one's natural admiration for conscientious effort. Occasionally a little harmless betting would take place among the crowd. 2-1 agin the old gent in the white waistcoat. 10-1 on old blowpipes, bar he don't roll over himself before he gets there. Even money on the purple emperor, a nickname bestowed by a youth of entomological tastes upon a certain retired military neighbour of my uncle's, a gentleman of imposing appearance when stationary, but apt to colour highly under exercise. My uncle and the others would write to the Ealing press complaining bitterly concerning the supineness of the local police, and the editor would add spirited leaders upon the decay of courtesy among the lower orders, especially throughout the western suburbs. But no good ever resulted. It was not that my uncle did not rise early enough. It was that troubles came to him at the last moment. The first thing he would do after breakfast would be to lose his newspaper. We always knew when Uncle Podger had lost anything, by the expression of astonished indignation with which, on such occasions, he would regard the world in general. It never occurred to my Uncle Podger to say to himself, "I am a careless old man. I lose everything. I never know where I have put anything. I am quite incapable of finding it again for myself. In this respect I must be a perfect nuisance to everybody about me. I must set to work and reform myself." On the contrary, by some peculiar course of reasoning, he had convinced himself that whenever he lost a thing, it was everybody else's fault in the house, but his own. "I had it in my hand not a minute ago," he would exclaim. From his tone you would have thought he was living surrounded by conjurers who spirited away things from him merely to irritate him. "Could you have left it in the garden?" my aunt would suggest. "What should I want to leave it in the garden for? I don't want the paper in the garden. I want the paper in the train with me." "You haven't put it in your pocket?" "God bless the woman, do you think I should be standing here at 5 minutes to 9 looking for it if I had put it in my pocket all the while? Do you think I'm a fool?" Here somebody would explain, "What's this?" and hand him from somewhere a paper neatly folded. "I do wish people would leave my things alone," he would growl, snatching at it savagely. He would open his bag to put it in, and then, glancing at it, he would pause, speechless with sense of injury. "What's the matter?" Aunt would ask. "The day before yesterday's," he would answer, too hurt even to shout, throwing the paper down upon the table. If only sometimes it had been yesterday's, it would have been a change, but it was always the day before yesterday's, except on Tuesday. Then it would be Saturday's. We would find it for him eventually. As often as not, he was sitting on it. And then he would smile, not genially, but with the weariness that comes to a man who feels that fate has cast his lot among a band of hopeless idiots. "All the time, right in front of your noses." He would not finish the sentence. He prided himself on his self-control. This settled, he would start for the hall, where it was the custom of my Aunt Maria to have the children gathered, ready to say goodbye to him. My aunt never left the house herself, if only to make a call next door, without taking a tender farewell of every inmate. One never knew, she would say, what might happen. One of them, of course, was sure to be missing, and the moment this was noticed, all the other 6, without an instant's hesitation, would scatter with a whoop to find it. Immediately they were gone, it would turn up by itself from somewhere quite near, always with the most reasonable explanation for its absence, and would at once start off after the others to explain to them that it was found. In this way, 5 minutes at least would be taken up in everybody's looking for everybody else, which was just sufficient time to allow my uncle to find his umbrella and lose his hat. Then, at last, the group reassembled in the hall. The drawing-room clock would commence to strike 9. It possessed a cold, penetrating chime that always had the effect of confusing my uncle. In his excitement, he would kiss some of the children twice over, pass by others, forget whom he had kissed and whom he hadn't, and have to begin all over again. He used to say he believed they mixed themselves up on purpose, and I am not prepared to maintain that the charge was altogether false. To add to his troubles, one child always had a sticky face, and that child would always be the most affectionate. If things were going too smoothly, the eldest boy would come out with some tale about all the clocks in the house being 5 minutes slow, and of his having been late for school the previous day in consequence. This would send my uncle rushing impetuously down to the gate, where he would recollect that he had with him neither his bag nor his umbrella. All the children that my aunt could not stop would charge after him, 2 of them struggling for the umbrella, the others surging around the bag. And when they returned, we would discover on the hall table the most important thing of all that he had forgotten, and wondered what he would say about it when he came home. We arrived at Waterloo a little after 9, and at once proceeded to put George's experiment into operation. Opening the book at the chapter entitled At the Cab Rank, we walked up to a hansom, raised our hats, and wished the driver good morning. This man was not to be outdone in politeness by any foreigner, real or imitation. Calling to a friend named Charles to hold the steed, he sprang from his box and returned to us a bow that would have done credit to Mr. Turveydrop himself. Speaking apparently in the name of the nation, he welcomed us to England, adding a regret that Her Majesty was not, at the moment, in London. We could not reply to him in kind. Nothing of this sort had been anticipated by the book. We called him coachman, at which he again bowed to the pavement and asked if we would have the goodness, and asked him if he would have the goodness to drive us to the Westminster Bridge Road. He laid his hand upon his heart and said the pleasure would be his. Taking the third sentence in the chapter, George asked him what his fare would be. The question, as introducing a sordid element into the conversation, seemed to hurt his feelings. He said he never took money from distinguished strangers. He suggested a souvenir, a diamond scarf pin, a gold snuff-box, some little trifle of that sort by which he could remember us. As a small crowd had collected, and as the joke was drifting rather too far in the cabman's direction, we climbed in without further parley, and were driven away amid cheers. We stopped the cab at a boot shop a little past Astley's Theatre that looked the sort of place we wanted. It was one of those overfed shops that the moment their shutters are taken down in the morning disgorge their goods all around them. Boxes of boots stood piled on the pavement or in the gutter opposite. Boots hung in festoons about its doors and windows. Its sunblind was as some grimy vine, bearing bunches of black and brown boots. Inside, the shop was a bower of boots. The man, when we entered, was busy with a chisel and hammer, opening a new crate full of boots. George raised his hat and said, "Good morning." The man did not even turn round. He struck me from the first as a disagreeable man. He grunted something which might have been "Good morning," or might not, and went on with his work. George said, "I have been recommended to your shop by my friend Mr. X." In response, the man should have said, "Mr. X is a most worthy gentleman. It will give me the greatest pleasure to serve any friend of his." What he did say was, "Don't know him. Never heard of him." This was disconcerting. The book gave 3 or 4 methods of buying boots. George had carefully selected the one centred around Mr. X as being of all the most courtly. You talked a good deal with the shopkeeper about this Mr. X, and then, when by this means friendship and understanding had been established, you slid naturally and gracefully into the immediate object of your coming, namely, your desire for boots, cheap and good. This gross, material man cared apparently nothing for the niceties of retail dealing. It was necessary with such a one to come to business with brutal directness. George abandoned Mr. X, and turning back to a previous page, took a sentence at random. It was not a happy selection. It was a speech that would have been superfluous made to any bootmaker. Under the present circumstances, threatened and stifled as we were on every side by boots, it possessed the dignity of positive imbecility. It ran, "One has told me that you have here boots for sale." For the first time the man put down his hammer and chisel and looked at us. He spoke slowly, in a thick and husky voice. He said, "What do you think I keep the boots for? To smell 'em?" He was one of those men that began quietly and grow more angry as they proceed, their wrongs apparently working within them like yeast. "What do you think I am?" he continued. "A boot collector? What do you think I'm running this shop for? My health? Do you think I love the boots and can't bear to part with a pair? Do you think I hang about here to look at them? Ain't there enough of them? Where do you think you are? In an international exhibition of boots? What do you think these boots are, a historical collection? Do you ever hear of a man keeping a boot shop and not selling boots? Do you think I'll decorate the shop with them to make it look pretty? What do you take me for? Prize idiot? I have always maintained that these conversation books are never of any real use. What we wanted was some English equivalent of the well-known German idiom "Behalten Sie Ihr Haar auf." Nothing of the sort was to be found in the book from beginning to end. However, I will do George the credit to admit that he chose the very best sentence that was to be found therein and applied it. He said, "I will come again when perhaps you have some more boots to show me. Till then, adieu." With that, we returned to our cab and drove away, leaving the man standing in the centre of his boot-bedecked doorway, addressing remarks to us. What he said I did not hear, but the passers-by appeared to find it interesting. George was for stopping at another boot shop and trying the experiment afresh. He said he really did want a pair of bedroom slippers, but we persuaded him to postpone their purchase until our arrival in some foreign city, where the tradespeople are, no doubt, more inured to this sort of talk, or else more naturally amiable. On the subject of the hat, however, he was adamant. He maintained that without that he could not travel, and accordingly we pulled up at a small shop in the Blackfriars Road. The proprietor of this shop was a cheery, bright-eyed little man, and he helped us rather than hindered us. When George asked him, in the words of the book, "Have you any hats?" he did not get angry. He just stopped and thoughtfully scratched his chin. "Hats?" said he. "Oh, let me think. Yes." Here a smile of positive pleasure broke over his genial countenance. "Yes, now I come to think of it, I believe I have a hat. But tell me, why do you ask me?" George explained to him that he wished to purchase a cap, a travelling cap, but the essence of the transaction was that it was to be a good cap. The man's face fell. "Oh," he remarked, "there I'm afraid you have me. Now, if you had wanted a bad cap, not worth the price asked for it, a cap good for nothing but to clean windows with, I could have found you the very thing. But a good cap? Nah, we don't keep them. But wait a minute," he continued, on seeing the disappointment that spread over George's expressive countenance. "Don't be in a hurry. I have a cap here." He went to a drawer and opened it. "It is not a good cap, but it is not so bad as most of the caps I sell." He brought it forward, extended on his palm. "What do you think of that?" he asked. "Could you put up with that?" George fitted it on before the glass, and, choosing another remark from the book, said, "This hat fits me sufficiently well, but tell me, do you consider that it becomes me?" The man stepped back and took a bird's-eye view. "Candidly," he replied, "I can't say that it does." He turned from George and addressed himself to Harris and myself. "Your friend's beauty," said he, "I should describe as elusive. It is there, but you can easily miss it. Now, in that cap, to my mind, you do miss it." At that point it occurred to George that he had had sufficient fun with this particular man. He said, "That is all right. We don't want to lose a train. How much?" Answered the man, "The price of the cap, sir, which, in my opinion, is twice as much as it is worth, is 4 and 6. Would you like it wrapped up in brown paper, sir, or in white?" George said he would take it as it was, paid the man 4 and 6 in silver, and went out. Harris and I followed. At Fenchurch Street we compromised with our cabman for 5 shillings. He made us another courtly bow, and begged us to remember him to the Emperor of Austria. Comparing views in the train, we agreed that we had lost the game by 2 points to 1, and George, who was evidently disappointed, threw the luggage out of the window. We found our luggage and the bicycles safe on the boat, and with the tide at 12, dropped down the river. And that brings us to the end of the chapter, and where we shall take a break. But don't worry, we've got more accents coming up in the second half. There's Scottish making a comeback. So yeah. Break time. You know, you're having a nice cuddle with the cat, and then he bunny kicked your arm off of him. Okay, yep, I'll get that. I get that from Joe. He's like, oh, cuddle me. I just touch the cat. Give me fuss. Bite. Just flip a switch, teeth come out, and the claws. So, you know. And yeah, the back leg rabbit kicking. It's fun. It's like he's trying to kill me. I don't know. Diana, I saw you sneak in there just after I'd started. Thank you very much for the 25 months. Hey crew. Indeed. Yeah. I'm gonna go to break. And like, get up and move around. Drink some water and stuff. So, see you all back here in about 5 minutes, friends. Bye for now. That's right, we're back. Hi. And yeah, I don't know why Twitch decided to hate me personally in an attack like that and not allow my sub message until, on a break. But sure, fine, sure. Hello, welcome back. That's true. The seat does, because it's like a leathery finish, so it does creak, like different kinds of creaks and stuff as I move around. Not like the cracking of plywood that's giving out because I've just been leaning on it for years, but it's, different kind of sound palette, but ultimately a significant upgrade, and one with fewer metal spikes literally jabbing into my back, which the other one was starting to do. So yeah, an upgrade is all go here in the exciting world of semi-new chair. Yeah, how are we doing? Fewer metal spikes is always good. Yeah, I've been hearing good things. It feels like it could be the new viral craze, perhaps a little bit late for the summer. But hey, maybe fewer metal spikes will be in this winter. That would be sick. That's, yeah. Having a wash on the floor. Good. Yeah. I as ever, I feel like I accumulate a whole bunch of thoughts to comment on whilst I'm in the process of reading. And then I get to the end of the, end of the half of the stream, go to a break, come back, head empty. Not a thought. So, that's cool. I feel like I'm going to allow myself a little bit of leeway in having a slightly dodgy German accent, because my justification, my canonical in-universe law accurate justification for this is that I'm imitating someone who himself probably doesn't have the sharpest German accent and is just kind of doing what sounded correct to his ear from the one time he met someone that he thought was German. And so that's why, it's just... Yeah, it sounds like it did. That is exactly, it's authenticity. I was playing the part. I was deep into the role of George or Harris or whoever the hell it was. Whichever Beatle, I don't know. Do you want to leave? At wishes to leave the room. Okay, let's sort that out. Right, fine, hi. He has left the room and is just leaving the, there we go, the tip of his tail through the door. Didn't suddenly want to render my cat an inch shorter, so just had to wait for him to, decide where he was going. Make his plans and all that. Right. Yeah. I did also particularly enjoy the account of being woken up in the middle of the night by a bunch of kids. I thought it was funny. Anyway, we carry on. We have chapter 5. Should we get into Sam has to remember how to speak in this accent? Which he hasn't done since we read Kidnapped. So, with preemptive apologies to the Scottish, I'm sorry. If we're ready, again, the link is at the top of chat. It doesn't link you to the chapter. You have faith. I don't. Right. Your link is there either at the top of chat or down in the YouTube comments if you're listening on YouTube. And if you're listening on YouTube, shout out to you. Thank you. Hi. I hope you're enjoying it. Tell a friend. Lettuce. Hang on a second. One of these days I will remember which button mutes my mic. Faith in the entertainment value. That's more like it. Oh, Perada, thank you for the octopus, by the way. I was down at the studio the other day. JD mentioned that he had it. I intended to pick it up, and then someone deleted my action as a sim, and I completely forgot to, so I will grab it at the next available opportunity, but it is there. Thank you very much. It is much appreciated. And I will get Lucy's as well. Thank you. But it is in orbit. It is nearly here. Anyway, yes, I'm going to read on. You gave him a whole handful. I can believe it. Sound like you had loads. Right. Sorry. I trick myself, because then when I'm going through the VOD and leaving markers and stuff, I'll set a chapter for here, and then you look in the comments and someone will be like, 5 minutes out, mate, you kept talking. Oh, I picked the wrong one. Right, okay. So, real, actual, final chapter 5 starting point. Use this one _ this one _ all caps this one .docx open bracket 2 close bracket .docx. Thank you, Bottle Crash. I'm outside. Let us continue with 3 Men on the Bummel by Jerome K. Jerome. Chapter 5. A necessary digression. Introduced by story containing moral. One of the charms of this book. The journal that did not command success. Its boast, instructions combined with amusement. Problem. Say what should be considered instructive and what amusing. A popular game. Expert opinion on English law. Another of the charms of this book. A hackneyed tune. Yet a third charm of this book. The sort of wood it was where the maiden lived. Description of the Black Forest. A story is told of a Scotsman who, loving a lassie, desired her for his wife, but he possessed the prudence of his race. He had noticed in his circle many an otherwise promising union result in disappointment and dismay, purely in consequence of the false estimate formed by bride or bridegroom concerning the imagined perfectibility of the other. He determined that in his own case no collapsed ideal should be possible. Therefore, it was that his proposal took the following form. I'm but a poor lad, Jenny. I've nae siller to offer ye in the land. But you hae yourself, Davy. And I wish for what anything else, lassie. I'm nae but a poor seasoned loon, Jenny. Nah, there's many a lad mair looking than yourself, Davy. I've nae seen him, lass, and I'm just a thinking I shouldn't care to. Better a plain man, Davy, that you can depend on, than in that would be sparing at the lassies, a bringing trouble into the hame with his flouting ways. Didn't you reckon on that, Jenny? That's nae the bonniest bobbly jock that makes the most feathers to fly in a kail yard. I was ever a lad to run after the petticoats, as is well kent, and I'm a weary handful I'll be to you, I'm thinking. But you have a kind heart, Davy, and you love me well, I'm sure on it. I like you well enough, Jenny, though I canna say how long the feeling may bide with me, and I'm kind enough when I have my own way and nothing happens on me to boot. Sorry, it happens to put me out. But I hate the devil's own temper, and my mother can tell you, and like my poor father, I'm a-thinking I'll go nae better as I grow more old. Aye, but you're so hard upon yourself, Davy. You're an honest lad. I ken you better than you ken yourself, and you'll make a good hame for me. Maybe, Jenny, but I have my doubts. It's a sore thing for a wife and bairns when the good man canna keep away from the glass. When the scent of the whisky comes to me, it's just as though I had the throat of a Loch Tay salmon. It just goes down, and there's nae filling of me. Aye, but you're a good man when you're sober, Davy. Maybe I'll be that, Jenny, if I'm nae disturbed. And you'll bide with me, Davy, and work for me? I see no reason why I shouldn't abide with you, Jenny, but dinna you clack about work for me, for I just canna bear the thought of it. Anyhow, you'll do your best, Davy. As the minister says, no man can do more than that. And it's the poor best that mine'll be, Jenny, and I'm nae sure, so nae say sure you'll hae a muckle even o' that. But a weak sinful creatures, Jenny, and yet hae some difficulty to find a man weaker or more sinful than myself. Well, you hae a truthful tongue, Davy. Mony a lad will make fine promises to a poor lassie only to break 'em and her heart with 'em. You speak me fair, Davy, and I'm thinking I'll just take you and see what comes of it. Concerning what did come of it, the story is silent, but one feels that under no circumstances had the lady any right to complain of her bargain, whether she ever did or not, for women do not invariably order their tongues according to logic, nor men, either for the matter of that. Davy himself must have had the satisfaction of reflecting that all reproaches were undeserved. I wish to be equally frank with the reader of this book. I wish here conscientiously to let forth its shortcomings. I wish no one to read this book under a misapprehension. There will be no useful information in this book. Anyone who should think that, with the aid of this book, he would be able to make a tour through Germany and the Black Forest would probably lose himself before he got to the Nore. That, at all events, would be the best thing that could happen to him. The farther away from home he got, the greater only would be his difficulties. I do not regard the conveyance of useful information as my forte. This belief was not inborn with me. It has been driven home upon me by experience. In my early journalistic days, I served upon a paper, the forerunner of many very popular periodicals of the present day. Our boast was that we combined instruction with amusement. As to what should be regarded as affording amusement and what instruction, the reader judged for himself. We gave advice to people about to marry, long, earnest advice that would, had they followed it, have made our circle of readers the envy of the whole married world. We told our subscribers how to make fortunes by keeping rabbits, giving facts and figures. The thing that must have surprised them was that we ourselves did not give up journalism and start rabbit farming. Often and often have I proved conclusively from authoritative sources how a man starting a rabbit farm with 12 selected rabbits and a little judgment must, at the end of 3 years, be in receipt of an income of 2,000 a year, rising rapidly. He simply could not help himself. He might not want the money. He might not know what to do with it when he had it. But there it was for him. I have never met a rabbit farmer myself worth 2,000 a year, though I have known many start with the 12 necessary assorted rabbits. Something has always gone wrong somewhere. Maybe the continued atmosphere of a rabbit farm saps the judgment. We told our readers how many bald-headed men there were in Iceland, and for all we knew our figures may have been correct. How many red herrings, placed tail to mouth, it would take to reach from London to Rome, which must have been useful to anyone desirous of laying down a line of red herrings from London to Rome, enabling him to order in the right quantity at the beginning. How many words the average woman spoke in a day, and other such like items of information calculated to make them wise and great beyond the readers of other journals. We told them how to cure fits in cats. Personally, I do not believe, and I did not believe then, that you can cure fits in cats. If I had a cat subject to fits, I should advertise it for sale, or even give it away. But our duty was to supply information when asked for. Some fool wrote, clamouring to know, and I spent the best part of a morning seeking knowledge on the subject. I found what I wanted at length at the end of an old cookery book. What it was doing there I have never been able to understand. It had nothing to do with the proper subject of the book whatever. There was no suggestion that you could make anything savoury out of a cat, even when you had cured it of its fits. The authoress had just thrown in this paragraph out of pure generosity. I can only say that I wish she had left it out. Was the cause of a deal of angry correspondence and of the loss of 4 subscribers to the paper, if not more. The man said the result of following our advice had been £2 worth of damage to his kitchen crockery, to say nothing of a broken window and probable blood poisoning to himself. Added to which the cat's fits were worse than before, and yet it was a simple enough recipe. You held the cat between your legs, gently so as not to hurt it, and with a pair of scissors made a sharp, clean cut in its tail. You did not cut off any part of the tail. You were to be careful not to do that. You only made an incision. As we explained to the man, the garden or the coal cellar would have been the proper place for the operation. No one but an idiot would have attempted to perform it in the kitchen, and without help. We gave them hints on etiquette. We told them how to address peers and bishops, how to eat soup. We instructed shy young men how to acquire easy grace in drawing-rooms. We taught dancing to both sexes by the aid of diagrams. We solved their religious doubts for them, and supplied them with a code of morals that would have done credit to a stained-glass window. The paper was not a financial success. It was some years before its time, and the consequence was that our staff was limited. My own department, I remember, included advice to mothers. I wrote that with the assistance of my landlady, who, having divorced one husband and buried 4 children, was, I considered, a reliable authority on all domestic matters. Hints on furnishing and household decorations, with designs. A column of literary counsel to beginners. I sincerely hope my guidance was of better service to them than it has ever proved to myself. And our weekly article, Straight Talks to Young Men, signed Uncle Henry. A kindly, genial old fellow was Uncle Henry, with wide and varied experience and a sympathetic attitude towards the rising generation. He had been through trouble himself in his far-back youth, and knew most things. Even to this day I read Uncle Henry's advice, and, though I say it who should not... Even to this day I read Uncle Henry's advice, and, though I should say it who should not, it still seems to me good, sound advice. I often think that had I followed Uncle Henry's counsel closer, I would have been wiser, made fewer mistakes, felt better satisfied with myself than is now the case. A quiet, weary little woman, who lived in a bed-sitting-room off the Tottenham Court Road, and who had a husband in a lunatic asylum, did our cooking column, hints on education, we were full of hints, and a page and a half of fashionable intelligence, written in the pertly personal style which even yet has not altogether disappeared, so I am informed, from modern journalism. I must tell you about the divine frock I wore at glorious Goodwood. Last week, Prince C was... I completely got confused by the punctuation. I must tell you about the divine frock I wore at glorious Goodwood last week. Prince C... But there, I really must not repeat all the things that silly fellow says. He is too foolish. And the dear Countess, I fancy, was just a weeish bit jealous. And so on. Poor little woman. I see her now in the shabby grey alpaca with the ink stains on it. Perhaps a day at glorious Goodwood or anywhere else in the fresh air might have put some colour into her cheeks. Our proprietor, one of the most unashamedly ignorant men I ever met, I remember his gravely informing a correspondent once that Ben Jonson had written Rabelais to pay for his mother's funeral, and only laughing good-naturedly when his mistakes were pointed out to him, wrote with the aid of a cheap encyclopedia, the pages devoted to general information, and did them on the whole remarkably well, while our office boy, with an excellent pair of scissors for his assistant, was responsible for our supply of wit and humour. It was hard work, and the pay was poor. What sustained us was the consciousness that we were instructing and improving our fellow men and women. Of all games in the world, the one most universally and eternally popular is the game of school. You collect 6 children and put them on a doorstep, while you walk up and down with the book and cane. We play it when babies, we play it when boys and girls, we play it when men and women. We play it as, lean and slippered, we totter towards the grave. It never palls upon, it never wearies us. Only one thing mars it, the tendency of one and all of the other 6 children to clamour for their turn with the book and cane. The reason, I am sure, that journalism is so popular a calling, in spite of its many drawbacks, is this. Each journalist feels he is the boy walking up and down with the cane. The government, the classes, and the masses, society, art, and literature are the other children sitting on the doorstep. He instructs and improves them. But I digress. It was to excuse my present permanent disinclination to be the vehicle of useful information that I recalled these matters. Let us now return. Somebody, signing himself balloonist, had written to ask concerning the manufacture of hydrogen gas. It is an easy thing to manufacture, at least so I gathered after reading up the subject at the British Museum, yet I did warn balloonist, whoever he might be, to take all necessary precaution against accident. What more could I have done? 10 days afterwards, a florid-faced lady called at the office, leading by the hand what, she explained, was her son, aged 12. The boy's face was unimpressive to a degree positively remarkable. His mother pushed him forward and took off his hat, and then I perceived the reason for this. He had no eyebrows whatever, and of his hair nothing remained but a scrubby dust, giving to his head the appearance of a hard-boiled egg, skinned and sprinkled with black pepper. "That was a handsome lad this time last week, with naturally curly hair," remarked the lady. She spoke with a rising inflection suggestive of the beginning of things. "What has happened to him?" asked our chief. "This is what's happened to him," retorted the lady. She drew from her muff a copy of our last week's issue, with my article on hydrogen gas scored in pencil, and flung it before his eyes. Our chief took it and read it through. "He was balloonist?" queried the chief. "He was balloonist," admitted the lady. "The poor, innocent child, and now look at him." "Maybe it'll grow again," suggested our chief. "Maybe it will," retorted the lady, her key continuing to rise, "and maybe it won't. What I want to know is what you are going to do for him." Our chief suggested a hair wash. I thought at first she was going to fly at him, but for the moment she confined herself to words. It appears she was not thinking of a hair wash, but of compensation. She also made observations on the general character of our paper, its utility, its claim to public support, the sense and wisdom of its contributors. "I really don't see that it is our fault," urged the chief. He was a mild-mannered man. He asked for information, and he got it. "Don't you try to be funny about it," said the lady. He had not meant to be funny, I am sure. Levity was not his failing. "Or you'll get something that you haven't asked for." "Why, for 2 pins," said the lady with a suddenness that sent us both flying like scuttled chickens behind our respective chairs, "I'd come round and make your head like it." I take it she meant like the boys. She also added observations upon our chief's personal appearance that were distinctly in bad taste. She was not a nice woman by any means. Myself, I am of opinion that had she brought the action she threatened, she would have had no case. But our chief was a man who had had experience of the law, and his principle was always to avoid it. I have heard him say, "If a man stopped me in the street and demanded of me my watch, I should refuse to give it to him. If he threatened to take it by force, I feel I should, though not a fighting man, do my best to protect it. If, on the other hand, he should assert his intention of trying to obtain it by means of an action in any court of law, I should take it out of my pocket and hand it to him and think I got off cheaply." He squared the matter with the florid-faced lady for a £5 note, which must have represented a month's profits on the paper, and she departed, taking her damaged offspring with her. After she had gone, our chief spoke kindly to me. He said, "Don't think I'm blaming you in the least. It is not your fault. It is fate. Keep to moral advice and criticism. There you are distinctly good, but don't try your hand on any more useful information. As I've said, it's not your fault. Your information is correct enough. There is nothing to be said against that. It is simply that you are not lucky with it." I would that I had followed his advice always. I would have saved myself and other people much disaster. I see no reason why it should be, but so it is. If I instruct a man as to the best route between London and Rome, he loses his luggage in Switzerland, or is nearly shipwrecked off Dover. If I counsel him in the purchase of a camera, he gets run in by the German police for photographing fortresses. I once took a deal of trouble to explain to a man how to marry his deceased wife's sister in Stockholm. I found out for him the time the boat left Hull and the best hotels to stop at. There was not a single mistake from beginning to end in the information in which I supplied him. No hitch occurred anywhere, yet now he never speaks to me. Therefore it is that I have come to restrain my passion for the giving of information. Therefore it is that nothing in the pages of practical instruction will be found, if I can help it, but nothing in the nature of practical instruction will be found, if I can help it, within these pages. There will be no description of towns, no historical reminiscences, no architecture, no morals. I once asked an intelligent foreigner what he thought of London. He said, "It is a very big town." I said, "What struck you most about it?" He replied, "The people." I said, "Compared with other towns, Paris, Rome, Berlin, what do you think of it?" He shrugged his shoulders. "It is bigger," he said. "What more can one say?" One ant-hill is very much like another. So many avenues, wide or narrow, where the little creatures swarm in strange confusion. These bustling by, important, these halting to powwow with one another, these struggling with big burdens, those but basking in the sun. So many granaries stored with food, so many cells where the little things sleep and eat and love, the corner where lie their little white bones. This hive is larger, the next smaller. This nest lies on the sand, and another under the stones. This was built but yesterday, while that was fashioned ages ago, some say even before the swallows came. Who knows? Nor will there be found herein folklore or story. Every valley where lie homesteads has its song. I will tell you the plot. You can turn it into verse and set it to music of your own. There lived a lass, and there came a lad, who loved and rode away. It is a monotonous song written in many languages, for the young man seemed to have been a mighty traveller. Here in sentimental Germany they remember him well. So also the dwellers of the blue Alsatian mountains remember his coming among them, while, if my memory serves me truly, he likewise visited the banks of Allan Water. A veritable wandering Jew is he, for still the foolish girls listen, so they say, to the dying away of his hoofbeats. In this land of many ruins, that long while ago were voice-filled homes, linger many legends. And here again, giving you the essentials, I leave you to cook the dish for yourself. Take a human heart or two, assorted, a bundle of human passions, there are not many of them, 6 at the most, season with a mixture of good and evil, flavour the whole with the sauce of death, and serve up where and when you will. The saint's cell, the haunted keep, the dungeon grave, the lover's leap, call it what you will, the stew's the same. Lastly, in this book there will be no scenery. This is not laziness on my part, it is self-control. Nothing is easier to write than scenery, nothing more difficult and unnecessary to read. When Gibbon had to trust to travellers' tales for a description of the Hellespont, and the Rhine was chiefly familiar to English students through the medium of Caesar's commentaries, it behooved every globe-trotter, for whatever distance, to describe to the best of his ability the things that he had seen. Dr. Johnson, familiar with little else than the view down Fleet Street, could read a description of a Yorkshire moor with pleasure and with profit. To a Cockney who had never seen higher ground than the Hog's Back in Surrey, an account of Snowdon must have appeared exciting. But we, or rather the steam engine and the camera for us, have changed all that. The man who plays tennis every year at the foot of the Matterhorn and billiards on the summit of the Rigi does not thank you for an elaborate and painstaking description of the Grampian Hills. To the average man, who has seen a dozen oil paintings, 100 photographs, 1,000 pictures in the illustrated journals, and a couple of panoramas of Niagara, the word painting of a waterfall is tedious. An American friend of mine, a cultured gentleman who loved poetry well enough for its own sake, told me that he had obtained a more correct and more satisfying idea of the Lake District from an 8-penny book of photographic views, and from all the words of Coleridge, Southey, and Wordsworth put together. I also remember his saying concerning this subject of scenery and literature that he would thank an author as much for writing an eloquent description of what he had just had for dinner. But this was in reference to another argument, namely, the proper province of each art. My friend maintained that just as canvas and colour were the wrong mediums for storytelling, so word painting was, at its best, but a clumsy method of conveying impressions that could much better be received through the eye. As regards to the question, there also lingers in my memory very distinctly a hot school afternoon. The class was for English literature, and the proceedings commenced with the reading of a certain lengthy, but otherwise unobjectionable poem. The author's name, I am ashamed to say, I have forgotten, together with the title of the poem. The reading finished, we closed our books, and the professor, a kindly, white-haired old gentleman, suggested our giving in our own words an account of what we had just read. "Tell me," said the professor encouragingly, "what it is all about." "Please, sir," said the first boy. He spoke with bowed head and evident reluctance, as though the subject were one which, left to himself, he would never have mentioned. "It is about a maiden." "Yes," agreed the professor, "but I want you to tell me in your own words. We do not speak of a maiden, you know. We say a girl." "Yes, it is about a girl." "Go on." "A girl," repeated the top boy, the substitution apparently increasing his embarrassment, "who lived in a wood." "What sort of a wood?" asked the professor. The first boy examined his inkpot carefully and then looked at the ceiling. "Come," urged the professor, growing impatient. "You have been reading about this wood for the last 10 minutes. Surely you can tell me something concerning it." "The gnarly trees and twisted branches," recommended the top boy. "No, no," interrupted the professor. "I do not want you to repeat the poem. I want you to tell me in your own words what sort of a wood it was where the girl lived." The professor tapped his foot impatiently. The top boy made a dash for it. "Please, sir, it was the usual sort of wood." "Tell him what sort of a wood," said he, pointing to the second lad. The second boy said it was a green wood. This annoyed the professor still more. He called the second boy a blockhead, though really I cannot see why, and passed on to the third, who, for the last minute, had been sitting apparently on hot plates, with his right arm waving up and down like a distracted semaphore signal. He would have had to say it the next second, whether the professor had asked him or not. He was red in the face, holding his knowledge in. "A dark and gloomy wood," shouted the third boy with much relief to his feelings. "A dark and gloomy wood," repeated the professor with evident approval. "And why was it dark and gloomy?" The third boy was still equal to the occasion. "Because the sun could not get inside it." The professor felt he had discovered the poet of the class. Because the sun could not get into it, or, better, because the sunbeams could not penetrate. And why could not the sunbeams penetrate there? "Please, sir, because the leaves were too thick." "Very well," said the professor. "The girl lived in a dark and gloomy wood, through the leafy canopy of which the sunbeams were unable to pierce. Now, what grew in this wood?" He pointed to the fourth boy. "Please, sir, trees, sir." "And what else?" "Toadstools, sir." This after a pause. The professor was not quite sure about the toadstools, but on referring to the text he found that the boy was right. Toadstools had been mentioned. "Quite right," admitted the professor. "Toadstools grew there. And what else? What do you find underneath trees in a wood?" "Please, sir, earth, sir." "No, no. What grows in a wood besides trees?" "Oh, please, sir, bushes, sir." "Bushes. Very good. Now we are getting on. In this wood there were trees and bushes. And what else?" He pointed to a small boy near the bottom, who, having decided that the wood was too far off to be of any annoyance to him individually, was occupying his leisure playing noughts and crosses against himself. Vexed and bewildered, but feeling it necessary to add something to the inventory, he hazarded blackberries. This was a mistake. The poet had not mentioned blackberries. "Of course, Klobstock would think of something to eat," commented the professor, who prided himself on his ready wit. This raised a laugh against Klobstock, and pleased the professor. "You," he continued, pointing to a boy in the middle, "what else was there in this wood besides trees and bushes?" "Please, sir, there was a torrent there." "Quite right. And what did the torrent do?" "Please, sir, it gurgled." "No, no, streams gurgle. Torrents roar, sir." "It roared. And what made it roar?" This was a poser. One boy, he was not our prize intellects, I admit, suggested the girl. To help us, the professor put his question in another form. "When did it roar?" Our third boy, again coming to the rescue, explained that it roared when it fell down among the rocks. I think some of us had a vague idea that it must have been a cowardly torrent to make such a noise about a little thing like this. A pluckier torrent, we felt, would have got up and gone on, saying nothing about it. A torrent that roared every time it fell upon a rock we deemed a poor, spirited torrent. But the professor seemed quite content with it. And what lived in this wood beside the girl? Was the next question. Please, sir, birds, sir. Yes, birds lived in the wood. What else? Birds seemed to have exhausted our ideas. Come, said the professor. What are those animals with tails that run up trees? We thought for a while. Then one of us suggested cats. This was an error. The poet had said nothing about cats. Squirrels was what the professor was trying to get. I do not recall much more about this wood in detail. I only recollect that the sky was introduced into it. In places where there occurred an opening among the trees, you could, by looking up, see the sky above you. Very often there were clouds in the sky, and occasionally, if I remember rightly, the girl got wet. I have dwelt upon this incident because it seems to me suggestive of the whole question of scenery in literature. I could not, at the time, I cannot now, understand why the top boy's summary was not sufficient. With all due deference to the poet, whoever he may have been, one cannot acknowledge that his wood was, and could not be otherwise than, the usual sort of a wood. I could describe the Black Forest to you at great length. I could translate to you Hebel, the poet of the Black Forest. I could write pages concerning its rocky gorges and its smiling valleys, its pine-clad slopes, its rock-crowned summits, its foaming rivulets, where the tidy German has not condemned them to flow respectably through wooden troughs or drain-pipes, its white villages, its lonely farmsteads. But I am haunted by the suspicion you might skip all this. Were you sufficiently conscientious or weak-minded enough not to do so, I should, all said and done, succeed in conveying to you only an impression much better summed up in the simple words of the unpretentious guidebook. A picturesque, mountainous district bounded on the south and the west by the plain of the Rhine, towards which its spurs descend precipitately. Its geological formation consists chiefly of variegated sandstone and granite, its lower heights being covered with extensive pine forests. It is well watered, with numerous streams, while its populous valleys are fertile and well cultivated. The inns are good, but the local wines should be partaken of by the stranger with discretion. And that brings us to the end of the chapter and where we finish tonight. Thank you for listening. Yeah, poetry. Who needs it? McGonagall's in chat, if you agree. Lucy, thank you very much for the 46 months. Cats. You came in just a little bit after the instructions for basically how to torture a cat. With a cat suffering from fits. I'm not sure what it means by fits. Maybe a cat having a hairball. I'm not sure. But just go at its tail with a pair of scissors. Not to cut anything off the tail, but just a tiny bit of animal cruelty. Well, apparently sort the cat right out. It doesn't. You did enjoy the answer of cats running up trees. I mean, they do that. I have seen that. But yeah, I continue to enjoy just the very dry, deadpan delivery of all this. I like the bit really early on. I wish to be equally frank with the reader of this book. I wish here conscientiously to let forth its shortcomings. I wish no one to read this book under a misapprehension. There will be no useful information in this book. Is yeah, you think? Thanks for the heads up, my guy. Yeah. Love how he goes on a huge tangent, then it basically sums it up in one sentence. Yeah, it's very good. And yeah, that's coming just after the whole, here is a story of a Scotsman who, he recognized that sometimes in a married relationship that, you know, things don't always work out because one half of the relationship can be viewed perhaps as maybe, in some cases, a little bit of a disappointment to the other. And so therefore, to combat this, I recognise certain members of the audience may, anyway, in order to combat this, sort of perhaps unreasonably set degree of expectations, he thought he would really make sure that she knew just how low the bar was. And she goes along with it. Like, it's also, it feels a little bit just, quite nicely satirically feminist, along with some other examples from earlier on. This book would be very sad, and you should read something pleasanter instead. Oh, Lemony Snicket. Yeah, I have only seen the film, and by the film I mean the Jim Carrey one, which as someone who hasn't read the books, I don't know how it stacks up against what people's expectations were towards it who enjoyed the books. But I feel like it, for me, like, it seemed like a very good vehicle for Jim Carrey to just put on some makeup and do his thing. You didn't see the movies, but the books are very entertaining. So, like, very dry humor. Okay, maybe I'd enjoy them. Yeah, well, a line from the film that I'm trying to think, like, what the circumstances are where it jumps into my head, but probably, I think for me, internally, my most quoted line from the film is Jim Carrey in one of his many ridiculous outfits. And I'm not going to attempt to do the voice, but he, like, you can see that it's Count Olaf. You can see that it's him. That's kind of the whole joke. But everyone just, like, apart from the kids, is like, that's Count Olaf. And he's like, my name is Stefano. I am an Italian man. And, like, that's the guys. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, no, that checks out. He looks like an Italian man. And for some reason, I have just always found that hysterical. Sam finds stereotypes hysterical. No, I find an attempt at a very bad stereotype hysterical because it's so obviously bad. And, like, that's just this sort of impenetrable wall of disguise that he puts before him, and everyone just sort of goes, oh yeah, okay, checks out, cool, welcome in. And so yeah, that delivery, it cracks me up every time. And there's also, actually, I think there's like a whole, I don't know if it's like an audition or just some kind of test reel that's on, you know back when you'd watch a film and it would have like special features and stuff. You need to rewatch it. Yeah, I should rewatch it, actually. Like, it's like visually, aesthetically, it's also really good. It's got some very good, like, design to it, I seem to remember. Yeah, you can probably find it on YouTube, as I guess where any like special making or featurettes go now. But there's like a whole bit of just Jim Carrey's like audition. It's either like an audition reel or like an early, just him trying out a bunch of different characters to play in the film. And again, it's just him cranked up to the max in front of a camera, just letting it rip. And I understand that's not for everybody. I fully appreciate people who find him irritating or tedious. The Tommy Lee Jones, I cannot abide your tomfoolery. Was it Tommy Lee Jones? Saying to him, like, yeah, I cannot abide your tomfoolery or something like that. It's a famous quote from the set of, I think, Batman, maybe? I'm not sure. But if you, like me, find that sort of clowning and buffoonery, or can, not universally, but can find that sort of thing funny, you had limited patience for him, but you imagine him being good in that particular role. Yeah, like, to me, yeah, that's the thing. He can also, we're just talking about Jim Carrey now, he can also deliver a very good acting performance when it is required of him. But he is also obviously very, very easily typecast as just someone who has pounded too many cocaine monsters that morning and just pull the cord, let him go, point the camera, and just let him zip around the room like Tigger. And so, like, that can be too much for some people, and it doesn't fit every role. But, you know, very interested to see him in the number 23. Yeah, that is one I haven't seen. But I mean, there's the obvious recommendations like The Truman Show, or just Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which it's, you know, hey, well, it's Sam's remembered the existence of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Time to recommend that film again. Yeah, like he is, or Man in the Moon actually as well, where he plays, you know, the biopic of Andy Kaufman. Also very, very good. And so, yeah. Haven't seen either of those. You probably should. Okay, we should try and... I really need to get some kind of Blu-ray drive for my laptop so we can do like better Discord movie nights, so I can use my actual film collection. That would be really good, actually. That would be a good excuse for me to do that. I'll think about that. We watch Eternal Sunshine because you don't think you got it when you were younger. It's an absolute banger of a film. I'm a big fan of Gondry, the director, Michel Gondry. I don't think he's made nearly as many films as I would like him to have, and I've not seen as many of the ones that he has made as I should. But if nothing else, the guy knows how to point a camera and show you something surreal. Wait. Also, that stream still doesn't have a Just the Song. Wait, what? What stream doesn't have a Just the Songs? Oh, Eternals. Oh, right, okay. That's... so I was like, wait, what? How to convince Dave? No, that's fine. Oh, we've got... Well, we have money coming in here on the channel. I get paid a wage. Don't worry, it's fine. Yeah. But yeah, no, I highly recommend Eternal Sunshine. It's, again, it might not be for everybody. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the director, Gondry. He is... Yeah, just, I don't know, puts the sort of, like, shots together in a film that's... I feel like, you know, it's the sort of thing you imagine, like, this must cost millions to do in, like, VFX budgets, and then you realise it's just all, like, staged and really well, like, coordinated and choreographed, and, like, the actual VFX are very minimal, and yeah, the guy does some incredible stuff, like, visually some incredible stuff. Again, I'm just recommending films now. Yeah, right, that brings us to the end of the stream. We're done. I am actually going to go and grind some coffee, so that, not for making coffee to drink now, but so that I can set some cold brew going that I can then filter tomorrow at a reasonable time, because that's my exciting plan. So yeah, I'm going to do that. You're all going to go wherever you feel like going. Up to you. There's a lot of streams going on if that's the sort of thing you want to go and watch. But otherwise, yeah, I'm not sure yet what mine and Lucy's plans are for next week. We might be doing a stream on Monday. Keep an eye and an ear out for that. We'll say it on the Discord if so. Otherwise, you can catch both me and Lucy over at Dave's channel tomorrow, twitch.tv/longestdave, where we'll be doing some Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, Lucy should be around Monday and Wednesday. Sick. So, yeah, we'll probably stream Monday evening, and probably stream Wednesday evening. And then, you know, the week continues. But for now, I am going to head off and turn this into a VOD to go up on YouTube and also go grind some coffee. So, I will see you on the next one. Have a good rest of the weekend. Take care of yourselves and the people around you. I will see you next time. Goodbye and good night.